Ethan felt his heart race as the doors to the Alien Academy slowly opened. This was it, the moment he had been waiting for. He had been chosen to join a prestigious academy where students from all over the galaxy came to learn. Ethan was the first human to ever be accepted, and his excitement was mixed with a sense of nervousness. Would they accept him, or would they mock him for being human? As he walked into the grand hall, his eyes widened. Aliens of all shapes and sizes surrounded him. Some were tall and thin, with smooth, shiny skin. Others were shorter, with multiple arms or glowing eyes. Each one spoke in a language that Ethan didn't understand, and the sound filled the air. Like music. He tried to smile, but he felt out of place. When Ethan took a seat in the first classroom, he noticed that the other students were already chatting in several languages. The teacher, a tall, blue-skinned alien with antennae, looked down at him with a small smirk. She began speaking in a fast, complex language, one that Ethan had never heard before. "Welcome, human," she said with a hint of sarcasm. "You are here to learn, but you will struggle, of course. Your species is known for its primitive languages." Ethan tried not to show his discomfort. He had studied some alien languages before, but nothing prepared him for the challenge ahead. His mind was racing, but he focused on the lesson. The teacher explained the basics of the language they were learning today, and Ethan listened carefully, taking notes as the lesson went on. The other students giggled and whispered to each other. Ethan felt their eyes on him, judging him for his strange accent and the way he stumbled over words. They were right, his language skills were nowhere near as advanced as theirs. Humans didn't speak many languages, and the ones they did speak weren't as complicated as those of the aliens. Still, Ethan wasn't ready to give up. He had dreamed of this moment for so long. If the aliens thought he was just some primitive human, he would show them that he was more than that. The academy would be his proving ground. But first, he would have to survive their mocking, and it was clear that wouldn't be easy. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Ethan woke up the next day, feeling the weight of the challenge ahead. His first day had been hard, and he wasn't sure if it would get any easier. The academy was big and filled with strange creatures, each one smarter and more advanced than he was. But he had made it this far, and he wasn't ready to back down. His next class was a language lesson, but this time the students didn't hide their laughter. Ethan sat down in his seat, trying to ignore the whispers around him. As the teacher began the lesson, he could feel the eyes of the other students on him. Some of them snickered, others outright laughed at the teacher. A short alien with green skin and 6 eyes started speaking in a fast, complicated language. Ethan struggled to keep up. The words were long and twisted, each one harder to pronounce than the last. He tried to repeat the sounds, but they came out wrong. The alien students giggled louder now. "This is pathetic," one of them muttered in a low voice. Ethan turned to see a tall blue alien with sharp teeth glaring at him. Humans can't even speak properly. "No wonder you're so far behind." Ethan's face turned red. He wanted to argue, but he knew better. It wouldn't change anything. So he focused on the lesson, blocking out the voices around him. He didn't care what they thought. He just had to prove them wrong. As the class went on, the mocking continued. Some students whispered about how humans would never catch up to the other species. Others joked that Ethan would never be able to speak their languages. They even started calling him the primitive one. The comments stung, but Ethan refused to let them get to him. He knew he wasn't the best, but he could get better. He had to. He wasn't about to let these aliens decide his future. By the end of the lesson, Ethan was exhausted. His head ached from trying to keep up with the strange words and sounds. But he couldn't give up. He couldn't let the mocking stop him. He had to be better. And he would be Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Ethan's resolve grew stronger with each passing day. Though the other students continued to mock him, he was no longer bothered by their teasing. He was determined to prove them wrong. In his mind, the challenge was clear. He had to learn these languages, and he had to do it faster than anyone thought possible. One afternoon, during a break between classes, Ethan was sitting alone in the cafeteria. He was eating quietly when Ava, a smart and sharp-eyed alien, approached him. She was one of the students who had made fun of him the most. She had long silver hair and glowing purple eyes that seemed to see through everything. "You're still here?" she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "I thought you'd have given up by now." Ethan looked up at her, his face calm. "I'm not giving up." Ava laughed, clearly enjoying the moment. "You're wasting your time. No human can learn our languages. They're too complex for you." "I'll prove you wrong," Ethan said quietly, his voice firm. "I'm going to learn all of them." Ava raised an eyebrow. "All of them? 5 languages in a year? That's impossible." Ethan met her gaze, his determination clear. "I'll do it. Just wait and see." Ava smirked, clearly amused by his confidence. "Fine, then. I'll make a deal with you. If you can learn 5 alien languages by the end of the year, I'll admit that humans have potential. But if you fail, well, I'll be waiting to say I told you so." Ethan nodded, accepting the challenge. Deal. The next day, Ethan threw himself into his studies. He spent hours in the library reading books about the different languages spoken by the Academy's students. He started with a language called Zaran, spoken by a race of tall, blue-skinned aliens. It was a tough language, full of strange sounds and complicated grammar, but Ethan was determined that every night, after his classes were over, Ethan would practice. He repeated words over and over, trying to get the sounds just right. The other students would watch him from a distance, still mocking, but Ethan ignored them. He knew that this was his path, and he wasn't going to let anyone stop him. As the days turned into weeks, Ethan's progress began to show. He wasn't fluent, but he could say a few basic phrases in Zaran. The mocking didn't stop, but Ethan could feel the smallest hint of respect starting to grow among some of the students. They were starting to realize that he might actually be serious. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Weeks passed, and Ethan's effort to learn the alien languages grew even more intense. He had mastered a few basic phrases in Zaran, but that was just the beginning. Now he had to move on to the next language, Korthian. It was a language spoken by a species that looked like large, 4-armed creatures with scales. Korthian was even more difficult than Zaran, with sounds and patterns Ethan had never heard before. Ethan would spend hours in the library, reading ancient texts and listening to recordings of native speakers. His progress was slow, but he refused to stop. Every evening when the academy was quiet, he would practice alone in his room, repeating words and sentences until they began to feel more natural. One day, while studying in the courtyard, Ethan was interrupted by a group of students. They were standing a few feet away, laughing and pointing at him. It wasn't the first time this had happened, but this time, Ethan didn't care. He kept his focus on his lesson, trying to ignore their mocking. "Look at him," one of the students said. "He's still trying. Does he really think he'll be able to speak our language?" "Humans are too simple for this," another student added. "He'll never get it." Ethan heard their words, but he didn't let them affect him. He had heard this kind of thing before. Instead, he continued practicing the Korthian words, his mouth moving slowly as he focused on getting the sounds right. After a while, a teacher named Zira, an older alien with shimmering silver skin, walked by and stopped to watch. She had been quietly observing Ethan for some time and had started to see a change in him. Though he still struggled, she could see the determination in his eyes. "You're getting better," she said, surprising Ethan. "You may not speak perfectly, but your effort is impressive." Ethan looked up at her, grateful for her words. "Thank you, I won't stop. I'm going to keep going until I can speak all 5 languages." Zira nodded, her expression softening. "That's the spirit. Don't let the others distract you. Keep pushing yourself. You're doing more than just learning words. You're proving that humans have the ability to adapt and learn in ways no one expected." Ethan smiled, feeling a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he could do it. As the days went on, he worked even harder, his confidence growing with each small victory. He wasn't just learning to speak alien languages. He was showing the Academy that humans were capable of more than anyone had believed. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Ethan had been working tirelessly for months now. He had learned a lot of Korthian and could speak in simple sentences. But there were still 4 more languages to go, and each one seemed harder than the last. Yet Ethan wasn't discouraged. The more he learned, the more he felt determined to prove the aliens wrong. One morning, as he walked to class, he heard a group of students talking. They were standing near the door, laughing. Ethan didn't want to listen, but their voices were loud enough to catch his attention. "Have you seen Ethan lately?" one of them asked. "He's still trying to learn our languages. Poor guy." Another student shrugged. "He's wasting his time. Humans will never be able to speak like us." Ethan's heart sank. He had been so focused on his studies that he hadn't noticed the others were still mocking him. But instead of getting angry, he reminded himself of his goal. He couldn't let their words stop him. This was his journey, not theirs. The class began, and Ethan sat at his desk, ready to continue his studies. Today's lesson was Thalmaric, a language spoken by an aquatic species. The language was full of complex sounds, and the words seemed to flow like water. Ethan struggled at first, but something inside him clicked. He found himself able to say a few sentences in Thalmaric, something he hadn't expected. After class, Zira, the teacher who had encouraged him before, approached him. She smiled when she saw his progress. "You've improved," she said. "Thalmaric is a difficult language, but you're getting the hang of it." Ethan smiled back, feeling proud. "It's still hard, but I won't give up. I can see that," Zira said. "Your effort is paying off. Don't let the others distract you. You're on the right path." Those words were exactly what Ethan needed. For the first time, he felt like he could really do it. He wasn't just learning languages anymore. He was becoming someone who could stand his ground in the Alien Academy. And soon, the others would have to recognize his determination. From that day on, Ethan's focus only grew stronger. He continued to learn, to practice, and to challenge himself. Slowly but surely, he was getting closer to his goal of mastering all 5 languages. He knew he wasn't there yet, but with every word he learned, he was one step closer to proving that humans could do anything they set their minds to. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Ethan continued his journey with the alien languages, each day becoming more and more determined. He had learned Thalmaric, and now it was time for his next challenge, Racker. The Racker language was harsh, filled with deep, rumbling sounds. It was spoken by a strong, muscular species with thick fur and sharp claws. This language seemed almost impossible at first. The sounds felt unnatural to Ethan, and he struggled to make the words come out right. Every night, Ethan stayed up late practicing. His room was filled with recordings of Racker phrases, and he repeated them over and over, trying to get each one perfect. Some nights, his voice would crack as he tried to imitate the deep growls and clicks of the Racker language. He was tired, but he couldn't stop. Every time he made a mistake, he picked himself up and tried again, on one of those late nights, as he was practicing in the courtyard, Ava walked by. She had been watching him for weeks now, and Ethan could see the curiosity in her eyes. She had always been the one to laugh at him, to tell him he couldn't do it. But now she seemed different. She paused for a moment, watching as Ethan repeated, "A difficult phrase. You're still going?" she asked, her voice a little softer than before. Ethan looked up, a little surprised to see her. "Yeah," he said, his voice tired but determined. "I'm not stopping. I'm going to learn it." Ava raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed. "You really think you'll get it? This language is harder than the others." Ethan nodded, his eyes steady. "I'll keep going until I do." Ava was silent for a moment, then nodded. "I guess I underestimated you. You might actually pull it off." Ethan didn't know what to say, but he smiled. It felt good to hear something other than mockery from Ava. Even if she didn't believe in him at first, maybe she was starting to see that humans could do more than they thought. Over the next few weeks, Ethan made steady progress with Racker. It wasn't perfect, but he was able to form simple sentences. Each time he spoke, he felt a little more confident. The other students, who had once laughed at him, now watched in silence as he practiced. Ethan didn't mind the attention anymore. He was focused on his goal, and nothing could stop him. As the days went by, Ethan began to realize something important. The hardest part wasn't learning the languages. It was proving that he could do it. And he was getting closer every day. Ethan had come a long way since his first day at the academy. He had learned Racker, and now there were only 2 languages left to master, Isri and the most difficult of all, the mysterious language of the Thrixians. But as Ethan sat in his room, going over his notes, he realized something. The academy that had once been a place of mockery and doubt was beginning to look different to him. The other students who had laughed at him were now starting to respect him. One afternoon, after a long study session, Ethan walked to the academy's gardens to clear his mind. As he passed by the large fountains, he noticed a group of students standing nearby. They were talking quietly among themselves, but when they saw Ethan, they fell silent. He wasn't sure why, but he kept walking, pretending not to notice them. Just as Ethan was about to leave the gardens, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned to find Ava walking toward him. She had a serious expression on her face. "Ethan," she said, stopping in front of him, "I've been watching you. You've learned so much. I never thought you could do it." Ethan gave her a small smile. "Thanks, I've been working hard." Ava nodded. "Yeah, I can see that. Honestly, I didn't think humans had the patience or skill to learn our languages. But you've proven me wrong. You've come further than anyone thought possible." Ethan felt a sense of pride, but he knew there was still a long way to go. "I'm not done yet. I still have 2 languages to learn." Ava smiled back, a small but genuine smile. "I know, but I wanted to say I respect you, Ethan. Not just for learning our languages, but for not giving up when everyone else doubted." "You?" Ethan was surprised. He had never expected this from Ava, someone who had been one of his harshest critics. But hearing her words gave him a new sense of confidence. If she could respect him now, maybe the others would start to see him in a new light too. As Ethan returned to his studies, he felt a new energy inside him. He was closer than ever to proving that humans had a place at the academy. No one could deny his progress anymore. Soon, he would master Isri and then the Thrixian language. And when he did, everyone would have to acknowledge what humans were capable of. But for now, Ethan focused on the task ahead. One step at a time, he would reach his goal. And nothing could stop him. Ethan could feel the finish line getting closer. He had already learned 4 languages: Zaron, Korthian, Falmeric, and Racker. Now only 2 more remained, Isri and Thrixian. Isri wasn't as difficult as some of the others, but it still required a lot of focus. The Isri people spoke in soft, flowing words that seemed almost like music. Their language was full of delicate sounds that Ethan struggled to mimic at first. He spent hours practicing the Isri language, listening to recordings and repeating the words over and over. Some days it felt like his progress was slow. But he refused to quit. Every small improvement made him feel 1 step closer to his goal. The other students had begun to notice. They no longer mocked him or made fun of his accent. Instead, they watched in silence as he worked, a quiet respect building among them. One afternoon, Ethan was in the courtyard, practicing his Isri when Ava approached him again. She looked more serious than usual, her face thoughtful. "Ethan, you've been making amazing progress," she said. "I've been watching you. I have to admit, I didn't think you'd make it this far." Ethan smiled and paused his practice for a moment. "Thanks, Ava. It hasn't been easy, but I'm determined to prove that humans can do this." Ava nodded, her eyes narrowing slightly. "I've been thinking a lot about what you've shown. US all. You've not only learned our languages, but you've done it without giving up. That's something we didn't expect." Ethan's heart swelled with pride. Hearing her words made all the hard work feel worth it. But he knew he wasn't done yet. There was still 1 more language to conquer. That evening, as Ethan sat in his room, preparing to start learning Thrixian, he couldn't help but feel the weight of the challenge ahead. Thrixian was a language spoken by a species known for their intelligence and complexity. It was said to be the hardest language in the galaxy. But Ethan wasn't afraid. He had made it this far, and he wasn't going to stop now. The next day, Ethan began to learn Thrixian. It was full of strange, high-pitched sounds and sharp tones. It felt like he was learning an entirely new way to think. But he was ready. He had faced every challenge up until now, and this one wouldn't be any different. As the days passed, Ethan grew more confident. He was close, so close to proving to the Academy and to himself that humanity was capable of greatness. The journey wasn't over yet, but Ethan knew that nothing could stop him now. ****. Ethan had never felt more focused. He had learned 4 alien languages, and now, with Thrixian, the final language standing in his way, he knew that the end of his journey was almost here. It was the hardest language he had ever encountered. The sounds were sharp, and the structure was completely different from anything he had learned before. It was a challenge like no other. He started each day early, listening to recordings of Thrixian speakers. He tried to mimic the sounds, repeating the phrases over and over. At first, the words felt impossible. His voice cracked when he tried to pronounce them, and the sentences came out wrong. But Ethan didn't give up. He knew this was his last hurdle, and he wasn't about to let it stop him now. One evening, after hours of practice, Ethan stood in front of the Academy's mirror. He had been practicing one particular phrase for days, and now he wanted to say it perfectly. He took a deep breath and spoke the words in Thrixian. The sound was clear, the pronunciation almost perfect. He smiled to himself. It wasn't fluent yet, but it was progress. The next morning, Ethan stood in the Academy's central hall, waiting for the final test. The entire class was there, including Ava and many other students who had once mocked him. They stood in groups, talking quietly, but Ethan could sense the tension in the air. This test would be the moment where everything would be decided. If he could speak Thrixian fluently, he would prove to them all that humans were capable of more than they had ever believed. Ava approached Ethan as he stood nervously near the front. "You ready?" she asked, her voice low. Ethan nodded. "I think so." "You've done the work," she said, giving him an encouraging smile. Just remember what you've learned." Ethan took a deep breath and stepped up to the podium. The teacher, Zira, stood by, waiting for him to begin. The room fell silent as Ethan opened his mouth and began speaking in Thrixian. The words came out slowly at first, but then they started to flow. He felt the language in his mind, every sentence making sense as he spoke. The room was still as he continued, and soon even the skeptical students were listening intently. When Ethan finished, there was a long pause. Then, slowly, the room erupted into applause. The students, who had once doubted him, now stood in admiration. Even Ava looked at him with new respect. Ethan had done it. He had learned 5 alien languages and proven that humans were capable of anything they set their minds to. He had succeeded. And in that moment, Ethan realized that the journey was just as important as the goal. The lessons he had learned along the way were more than just about languages. They were about resilience, determination, and never giving up. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Ethan stood at the front of the academy, feeling the weight of the moment. He had just finished speaking in Thrixian, and the room was filled with the sound of applause. For the first time since he had arrived, he felt a sense of pride that he had never known before. The students who had once laughed at him now looked at him with respect. The teachers who had doubted him now saw him as someone capable of great things. Ava walked up to him, her eyes bright with admiration. "You did it," she said, smiling. "I have to admit, I didn't think you could learn all 5 languages, but you proved me wrong." Ethan smiled back, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. "Thanks. It wasn't easy, but I had to keep going. I couldn't stop." "You didn't just learn the languages," Ava continued. "You showed us that humans are stronger than we thought. You've proven that determination is more important than any challenge." Ethan nodded, his heart full of gratitude. It wasn't just about the languages. It was about showing that humans can adapt, can grow. We might not be as old as some of the species here, but we can still do great things. The academy had been hard on Ethan at first. The mocking, the doubts, the looks of disbelief, it had all been difficult to bear. But now, standing here, he knew it had all been worth it. He had faced every challenge head-on, never backing down. And in the end, he had proven that humanity had a place in this world. As the days went by, Ethan's reputation continued to grow. The other students, once so quick to mock him, now came to him for help with their own language studies. They no longer saw him as the primitive human. Instead, they saw him as a skilled linguist, someone who had proven that anything was possible with hard work and determination. Ethan single quotes S success wasn't just about the languages he had learned. It was about the message he had sent to everyone around him. No matter how hard the task, no matter how many people doubted him, he had kept going. And in doing so, he had shown the academy and himself that humans were capable of greatness. He had earned his place at the academy, and that, to Ethan, was the most important victory of all. Asterisk, asterisk.